Hey everyone, Coach Megan here, and welcome to the Powerhouse Podcast. This episode is brought to you by our free pageant course, which you guys can go to powerhousepageantry.com/free course to go ahead and grab that now. This episode is all about what not to say in your pageant interview, and let me tell you, I have seen it all. In the last 8 years, Powerhouse just had their 8-year anniversary. I have heard some crazy things, let me tell you, when it comes to interview. But today I also really want to touch on just some other interview things not to do, because I know that you guys listening are everywhere from a total pageant newbie to a veteran and everywhere in between of just wanting to have fun at your pageant to this really being dedicated as the year that you want to win. And so we're going to cover 5 major things today, and they will help you for whatever phase of the winner's way, which is what we call it, for regardless of where you're at on that pathway. So first and foremost, the number one thing not to say and not to do in your interview is to be too casual. I found this specifically when it comes to Generation Z, when they are used to everything from not capitalizing text messages that they write, not using punctuation, and even simply as colloquial words as using yeah, of course, ums and likes and things of that nature. We'll talk about that with number 2. But really watching the tonality of which you speak. So a great way to practice with this in real life is just to have more adult conversations, to have more conversations with people in real life that challenge you and that require you to show up at your highest self level. Now, what this doesn't mean is I don't want you to be faking things and being this plastic Barbie and all of a sudden like turning into a different person where you're not acting like yourself. You're changing your tonality to sound whatever you think a professional person would sound like. Don't do that, because you're going to actually be putting a smoke screen up and dismantling a lot of your connection, which is nonverbal. It's going to cut off your nonverbals immediately, which is between 80 and 90% of your communication. So don't do that. But what I am saying is just try to grow your self-awareness. And this is just the personal development journey anyway. And committing to being that highest version of yourself, this will uproot some of that. But you do need to be able to have adult conversations, professional conversations in professional settings. So be mindful of the vocabulary that you're using and ask yourself, just audit, okay, would this be appropriate? What I don't want you to do is think, does this sound smart? Okay, you are smart, you are intelligent, trust that, and you can do things every single day. If you're like, well, I'm not really that smart. Okay, well then start reading books, start listening to podcasts. You are well on your way. You're going to catch so much of language just by listening to people that have higher levels of achievement or have already been where you want to be. So don't necessarily worry about that. I'm not a huge fan of studying vocabulary, because I think it's working from an outside in rather than an inside out approach. And inside out approach is just always going to be 15 times faster, because 90% of everything is mindset anyway. So have more adult level conversations, have more professional conversations, and just force yourself to show up as, the title holder, as a leader, as somebody that has something to say more often. I was just having a conversation with one of my business clients earlier today, and this brings me to number 2. Do not go into your pageant interview. Do not say these things in your interview. Don't just blab without a plan. You have to go in with a plan. Okay, so number 2 is have a plan, or don't not have a plan. So I was talking with one of my business coaching students earlier today who's launching a beautiful brand new company. And one of the things that we were talking about was I was alluding to an Alex Hormozy video where he talked about how when he started Gym Launch, and it's okay if you don't know who that is, but he's huge in the online marketing world. So he was talking about how he was so proud of himself when he was trying to grow Gym Launch, where he laid out 300 flyers on cars, and he was like so proud of himself and worked really hard on the marketing, and he was like, yeah, this is totally going to do the trick. And he spoke with someone at a level above him, had a professional conversation, and the guy laughed at him. And Alex was like, oh my gosh, why are you laughing at me? I didn't know I should be embarrassed right now. And the guy said, can I just give you some perspective? And he's like, yeah. And the guy said, I don't even, my initial batch of what I consider to be throwaway is 3,000 flyers before I even have 1% of my data. I consider that just the cost to play the game before I even audit or consider what's going to be my real run rate of marketing materials when I basically get 3,000 pieces of feedback of that marketing stunk, the picture on there was terrible, et cetera, et cetera. And so this kind of meshes with number 3, don't go in without having practice and really gotten the reps in, and therefore go get the reps in. These things are really powerful together when we have a plan and when we commit to what is the number of reps, what are the number of failures, what are the number of feedback sessions, if you will, that I need to get to feel comfortable actually saying, hey, this is a skill set of mine and I can feel comfortable and congruent walking in an interview. I was just talking with my client and I could sense that she was having some imposter syndrome. And I called it out and I said, of course you feel imposter syndrome. Well, first of all, the only people that don't feel imposter syndrome are narcissists and people that are actually imposters, right? Or maybe the third version would be a person who isn't alive, right? Like those are the only 3 people that don't feel like imposters. So it's okay. And don't let imposter syndrome keep you from taking the action that you need to take. You can feel imposter syndrome and take massive imperfect action at the same time. And that is a really powerful combination. But when we go into something with an initial plan, and then we also go in and we commit to the hard work, we commit to the number of repetitions that it's going to take to get the feedback from others, and also self-reflective feedback, you guys. And this is number 4. Like, don't run to your pageant and just do an interview having never taken notes on yourself. Okay. This is why coaching is so imperative and why I love the coaching world, is because I get to teach my students, not only give them feedback, but I get to teach them how to give themselves feedback at the same time. And our coursework, our frameworks teach them how to become so good at non-self-critical, but really just objective feedback. Like, it is so beautiful to get to this place of authenticity and identity where I can say that version of my walk sucked, like that was so bad. And I can say, okay, that wasn't my best interview, but it's not, I'm a terrible person and it's so bad and my interview is so bad because I'm bad and I'm not enough because I ruined one interview and that means I'm going to fail in my interview at Miss Nebraska. It's like, how many times do we do that? A lot. I see a lot of people do that. And that's because they can't separate their worth from their actions and their achievements. And that's really, really damaging to your overall performance, and it will inhibit you incredibly so if you cannot give yourself self-feedback many times. So ask yourself today and reverse engineer, okay, how many reps do I think it's going to take of giving myself accurate feedback, which is going to require you to get uncomfortable, okay? You're going to have to review things you don't want to review. You're going to have to go back and listen to your voice. And yes, you may hate the sound of your voice, or yes, your hair might have been out of place, like mine is today, because I'm 8 months pregnant and I'm just here, okay? I'm out of breath just walking up the stairs. And that is what it is right now, right? But there's an element of beauty and authenticity that comes from being able to just own the things that you can own, right? Like, I could walk around and be out of breath and just pretend like no one notices it and have to give a giant speech like this the whole time. Or I could just walk up in the beginning of my speech and be like, I'm 8 months pregnant. I'm probably going to get out of breath. This is going to be hilarious. So ready for your questions. Really excited to be here. And what does that do to take this elephant out of the room where now you and I feel like we're on the same team? And even if I do get out of breath, even if I do have an 8 months pregnant moment, right? Then we're still rocking and rolling and having fun. And you're not looking at the out of breath as an outlier or as an attack or as an enemy. And now it's just like a fun joke that we're all on the inside of. And the last thing not to say, not to do in your pageant, okay, this is so crucial. Don't go in without knowing who you are and what your mission is, okay? Especially for some of you guys that only have 45 seconds to answer a question. And then obviously on the big side of things, the long side of things, we have 10 minutes to answer things. If it takes you 3 to 5 minutes to share what you're all about, I would venture, it's going to step on some toes. I would venture to say you really don't know what you're talking about and you really don't believe yourself. Okay. I know that's hard to hear, but the most impactful people who really own it, they mean it, and they don't have to prove anything are people who can relaxedly, is that a word? Relaxedly get their point across efficiently. And they can get the point across while making an emotional impact efficiently, right? Like I have a framework that we teach, which you guys again can get inside of our free course. Click the link below or go to powerhousepageantry.com/free course. And I was in this place, I was doing this thing, and I felt like this. So if you guys have watched our YouTube channel for a long time or listened to our podcast, you've heard my story where I said I was 19, I was standing in front of the mirror, and I felt like a complete failure. Boom. How does that hit you when I say that, right? Now, I could have told you every detail. It was the summer in June after my freshman year of college, and I was in music school and blah, 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 and all these things. And I have that version of that story. If I have 60 minutes to speak with a brand or I'm giving a keynote or whatever, then yeah, I have my 60-minute version of that story. But I also need to have the 10-second version and the 30-second version of my story. And that only comes with putting in the other 4 things into practice I told you guys to do today. Okay. So it's super, super, super crucial that you know how to be efficient and that you've given yourself as many repetitions as necessary, put yourself in as many scenarios as necessary to become really, really good at presently and effectively and succinctly sharing kind of that, we call it the hero story at Powerhouse. So when I say, I was standing in front of my mom's mirror, I was 19 years old and I felt like a complete failure. Then I go to the next part in the framework and I'm like, but you know what? I'm so glad that one decision helped me build who I am today and that I didn't stop there or that I didn't give up. And then I bring into the present and I'm like, now I built $1 million company in my 20s. I'm married to the man of my dreams and I'm becoming a mom this year. And I truly have built the life that little 19-year-old me dreamed of. I've gotten to serve over 1,000 women in my lifetime, and I'm on a mission to XYZ, right? That literally took like less than 30 seconds to share. And yet it's able to make a really deep impact that creates an emotion in not only me, but of course the judges that extends across the table. So those are my 5 big things not to say or do in your pageant interview, as well as what to do instead. Make sure that you grab our free pageant course by clicking the link below. And I hope to see you on a coaching call or inside of one of our programs very soon.